Reading from Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 12, Text 16. Tatteham darshayishyami dridiksho surasatama kaminam bahumantavyam sankalpa prabhavodayam. Because we'll be covering 21 verses today, I will skip the word-to-word meanings. The translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation: O best of demigods, I now show you my form that is very much appreciated by those who are lusty. Since you want to see that form, I shall reveal it in your presence. Purport: Lord Shiva's desiring to Vishnu a joking affair. Lord Shiva knew that he could not be agitated by any so-called beautiful woman. The Daityas may have been bewildered, he thought, but since even the demigods could not be agitated, what to speak of me, who am the best of all demigods? However, because Lord Shiva wanted to see Vishnu's form as a woman, Vishnu decided to impersonate a woman and show him a form that would immediately put him in an ocean of lusty desires.
Gaur Kumar, we lost your voice. Sorry, bro, we lost you temporarily. You're on mute. Maybe Prabhu needs to become the co-host.
Okay. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, now we are able to hear you.
Sorry. Okay. In effect, therefore, Lord Vishnu told Lord Shiva, I shall show you my form as a woman, and if you become agitated by lusty desires, do not blame me. The attractive features of a woman are appreciated by those who are affected by lusty desires. But those who are above such desires, who are on the platform of Krishna consciousness, are very difficult to bewilder. Nonetheless, by the supreme desire of the personality of Godhead, everything can be done. This was to be a test of whether Lord Shiva could remain unagitated. So, because we'll be covering 21 verses today, I'm going to read very quickly the remaining 20 verses and then talk about these verses as a summary. Text 17, Sukadeva Goswami continued, after speaking in this way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu immediately disappeared, and Lord Shiva remained there with Uma, looking for him all around with moving eyes. Thereafter, in a nice forest nearby, full of trees with reddish pink leaves and varieties of flowers, Lord Shiva saw a beautiful woman playing with a ball. Her hips were covered with a shining sari and ornamented with a belt. Because the ball was falling down and bouncing up as she played with it, her breasts trembled, and because of the weight of those breasts and her heavy flower garlands, her waist appeared to be all but breaking at every step, as her two soft feet, which were reddish like coral, moved here and there. The woman's face was decorated by broad, beautiful, restless eyes, which moved as the ball bounced here and there from her hand. The two brilliant earrings on her ears decorated her shining cheeks like bluish reflections, and the hair scattered on her face made her even more beautiful to see. As she played with the ball, the sari covering her body became loose, and her hair scattered. She tried to bind her hair with her beautiful left hand, and at the same time, she played with the ball by striking it with her right hand. This was so attractive that the Supreme Lord, by his internal potency, in this way captivated everyone. While Lord Shiva observed the beautiful woman playing with the ball, she sometimes glanced at him and slightly smiled in bashfulness. As he looked at the beautiful woman and she watched him, he forgot both himself and Uma, his most beautiful wife, as well as his associates nearby. When the ball leaped from her hand and fell at a distance, the woman began to follow it. But as Lord Shiva observed these activities, a breeze suddenly blew away the fine dress and belt that covered her. Thus, Lord Shiva saw the woman, every part of whose body was beautifully formed, and the beautiful woman also looked at him. Therefore, thinking that she was attracted to him, Lord Shiva became very much attracted to her. Lord Shiva, his good sense taken away by the woman because of lusty desires to enjoy with her, became so mad for her that even in the presence of Bhavani, he did not hesitate to approach her. The beautiful woman was already naked, and when she saw Lord Shiva coming towards her, she became extremely bashful. Thus, she kept smiling, but she hid herself among the trees and did not stand in one place. His senses became agitated. Lord Shiva, victimized by lusty desires, began to follow her, just as a lusty elephant follows a she elephant. After following her with great speed, Lord Shiva caught her by the braid of her hair and dragged her near him. Although she was unwilling, he embraced her with his arms. Being embraced by Lord Shiva like a female elephant embraced by a male, the woman whose hair was scattered swirled like a snake. O king, this woman who had large, high hips was a woman of Yoga Maya presented by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She released herself somehow or other from the fond embrace of Lord Shiva's arms and ran away, as if harassed by an enemy in the form of lusty desires. Lord Shiva followed the path of Lord Vishnu, who acts very wonderfully and who has taken the form of Mohini. Just as a maddened bull elephant follows a female elephant who is able to conceive pregnancy, Lord Shiva followed the beautiful woman and discharged semen, even though his discharge of semen never goes in vain. O king, wherever so on the surface of the globe fell the semen of the great personality of Lord Shiva, mines of gold and silver later appeared. Following Mohini, Lord Shiva went everywhere, near the shores of the rivers and lakes, near the mountains, near the forests, near the gardens, and wherever there lived great sages. O Maharaj Parikshit, best of kings, when Lord Shiva had fully discharged semen, he could see how he himself had been victimized by the illusion created by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, he restrained himself from any further Maya. Text 36. Thus, Lord Shiva could understand his position and that of the personality of Godhead, who has unlimited potencies. Having reached this understanding, he was not at all surprised by the wonderful way Lord Vishnu had acted upon him. Seeing Lord Shiva unagitated and unashamed, Lord Vishnu, Madhusudana, was very pleased. Thus, he resumed his original form and spoke as follows. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo. Hare Krishna. So this is a pastime which talks about how Mohini Murti bewilders Lord Shiva. It's a jovial exchange with some grave messages. So I will talk about these messages that we can get, or the lessons that we can get from this particular pastime, and also share a little bit about Purushottam Mas, the auspicious month of Purushottam that starts from today. So Krishna willing, I'll be able to cover both of these topics. So just a brief background of this particular pastime. So Lord Shiva, in the pastime of the churning of the milk ocean, Samudra Manthan pastime, after drinking the poison, the hala hala poison, he immediately left the scene. And because of that, he was not able to witness this beautiful form of Mohini Murti, which bewildered the demons completely. So later, when he heard about this beautiful form, he was eager to see this beautiful form. So, along with his wife Parvati, he went to the abode of Lord Vishnu, as we see here, and glorified Vishnu in 4 words. He said, Deva Deva, Jagat Vyapi, Jagat Isha, Jagat Maya. Deva Deva. So he said, Lord of the Lords, who is all pervading, who is the master of the universe, who has transformed his energy into this material creation. Please let me see your form. So he says, I saw all kinds of incarnations. Now I wish to see your Mohini Murti form that captivated the demons completely. Now, before we go any further in this pastime, we have to understand the position of Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva was Dhira Purush. Now, Dhira Purush means he was completely sober and he was completely self-controlled. So there was no question in his mind that he will get bewildered or captivated by anything other than Lord Vishnu. So even Parvati, who is Maya Devi herself, could not captivate Lord Shiva. And this is demonstrated in the pastime where Cupid was burned to ashes by Shiva's third eye when Cupid tried to unite Parvati and Lord Shiva. So could such a Lord who was Dhira Purush get captivated? The word captivated is actually very interesting because what that means is someone external to you could actually completely control your mind. So could Lord Shiva get captivated? So there are 3 important lessons from 3 different perspectives that we get from this pastime. The first perspective is the perspective of us, the conditioned souls. Now, how do we view this pastime? What lessons do we understand from this pastime? The second lesson that we can get is from the perspective of Lord Shiva himself. How does he deal with this pastime after this pastime unfolds? And the third perspective is from the perspective of Lord Vishnu. How does Lord Vishnu see this pastime? So let's start from the first perspective, the perspective of conditioned souls. So there is a verse that, one of the verses that we read, which is verse 34, which goes like this. Following Mohini, Lord Shiva went everywhere, near the shores of the rivers and lakes, near the mountains, near the forests, near the gardens, and wherever there lived great sages. So the great sages are witnessing this pastime of Lord Shiva following this beautiful woman. And there is an important lesson here which talks about how we as conditioned souls must be very much careful or beware of lust. So what this is saying is when Lord Shiva was chasing Mohini Murti, he went through the area of great sages. It was shown to the sages that even Lord Shiva is fallible. Now, when the great sages are seeing that Lord Shiva is fallible, then what to speak of us? So, what this is saying is the lesson for us is that we have to be extremely careful when dealing with the opposite gender. Now, the Shrimad Bhagavatam repeatedly talks about this theme through several pastimes. For example, I was able to find four, but there are probably more. Lord Brahma, how he gets attracted to his daughter, Saraswati, also known as Vak. Yayati and Devyani, how Yayati gets completely captivated by lust towards Devyani, and he even swapped his age with one of his sons just so that he could enjoy with Devyani. There is the pastime of Pururava and Urvashi, also depicting this particular concept of how captivating lust can be. And finally, Saubari Muni. Now, this pastime is very interesting because he was in the Yamuna river in Vrindavan Dham performing tapasya, and still he got bewildered. And still he was captivated by just seeing two fish mating. So, this is the power of lust. So, it could bewilder any of us. So, that is the lesson that we get when we look at this particular pastime. What to speak of great sages? I mean, what to speak of us? Like when great sages um, and even Lord Shiva and Brahma are getting bewildered, then what to speak of us? That's the first lesson. The second lesson is from Shiva's perspective. So here, this is verse 36. Thus, Lord Shiva could understand his position and that of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has unlimited potencies. Having reached this understanding, he was not at all surprised by the wonderful way Lord Vishnu had acted upon him. So this verse talks about the consciousness of Lord Shiva after this, immediately after this pastime. So after he falls, he was not humiliated, he was not embarrassed, but he was elated in glorification of Lord Vishnu. Immediately he understands his position and that of the position of the Lord, who has unlimited potencies. So he thinks, no one could make me fall except Lord Vishnu. So temporarily, even though he was captivated, he immediately recovers and immediately starts glorifying the Lord, demonstrating his devotion to the Supreme. So this is an important lesson for us, that he was completely focused on Krishna. So through this pastime, Lord Shiva's great devotion to the Supreme is glorified. Please remember that he was embarrassed in front of his wife, in front of great sages, but still he was unashamed. So the lesson we need to learn here is that we need to love Krishna more than our ego. So as a practicing devotee of Krishna consciousness for a few years, I can say that over the years, what happens is you tend to get name, fame, respect, and so on. And then at a particular point, if all of that is taken away, then do you feel embarrassed? Do you feel humiliated? Or can you maintain your focus on Krishna? So Lord Shiva in this particular case passed that test. He was completely focused on Krishna, even though temporarily, for a short period of time, he was captivated not by the external energy, but the internal spiritual energy of the Lord. So even if we fail in Krishna consciousness, it's okay to fail and fall within Krishna consciousness, but we must not fall away from Krishna. We must always try to be focused on Krishna, even if we fall in Krishna consciousness. So that is the lesson that we learn from the consciousness of Lord Shiva. The next lesson we learn is from the perspective of Lord Vishnu. So one of the last verses we read was, seeing Lord Shiva unagitated and unashamed, Lord Vishnu was very pleased. So the third lesson from the perspective of Lord Shiva says that Lord Shiva was actually very pleased by this whole pastime. So as we mentioned before, Lord Shiva was a dhira. He was sober, self-controlled. So it took the external energy also could not bewilder or captivate Lord Shiva, but it took the internal spiritual energy of the Lord, Mohini Murti, to actually captivate Lord Shiva. So this pastime actually glorifies Lord Vishnu because nobody could captivate Lord Shiva. And it took Lord Vishnu's internal spiritual energy to captivate Lord Shiva. And it also glorifies Lord Shiva about his devotion to the Supreme, how he was completely focused, even though there was a temporary lapse, he was able to immediately think of the Lord and he remained unagitated and unashamed. And this pastime is not an embarrassment, it's actually a glorification of Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva. So I'll stop with these three lessons and talk a little bit about this auspicious month which starts today. It's the Purushottam Mas or Purushottam month, and it's a very, very auspicious month. This month is also known as Adhik Mas. Now, the word Adhik means extra. It's called the extra month or the extra Mas. So, why is it called extra? So, last time this particular month happened was in 2018. And now it starts today, September 17th, and goes on till October 16th of 2020. So I'll be discussing about this month, the glories of this month, and some of the things that we should do in this month to reap the benefits of this month. This month is also known as Malamas. So the word Mala means dirt, it means waste, and the actual meaning of Mala is actually stool. So why is this month called like this? And how did it get the name Purushottam Mas? So we'll look at some history of how this happened. How did Malamas, how did a dirty Mas, dirty month, waste month, an extra month get this name Purushottam month? So we'll start by talking a little bit about astronomy, some basics. So the Vedic calendar is a lunar calendar, and it is based on the cycles of the moon. So typically, a lunar month is about 29.5 days long. So if you multiply that by 12, a lunar year becomes 354 days. And in the Western world, we follow the solar calendar. The solar month is about 30 to 31 days. And if you multiply that by 12, you would get 365 days. So now you see a difference between the duration of the lunar year and the solar year. There's a difference of 11 days. And to harmonize the difference between the lunar year and the solar year, this Adhik Mas is added at the end of the lunar year so that both the solar year and the lunar year are harmonized or are in sync. So after every 2.5 to 3 years, 1 month of 30 days is added to the year. So that means after every 2 years, 8 months, and 16 days, this Adhik Mas, that's why it's called the extra month. This extra month is added to the lunar year so that it becomes in sync with the solar year. So that's the astronomy. Now, this Malmas is not an auspicious month for karma kanda activities or fruitive activities. In fact, it is not a good month for any material sense gratification. It is not a good time during this month for marriages, for housewarming ceremonies, and so on. In India, this whole month is completely blocked off for any of these ritualistic activities or karma kanda activities or fruitive activities for material sense gratification. So people following karma kanda name it Malamas, or it's a dirty month. There's nothing, it's a waste month. So there's no material sense gratification there. Now, as we understand, every month, day, planet is governed by some demigod or demigoddess. For example, Sunday is governed by the Surya Dev, sun god. Monday is governed by the moon god, Chandra Dev. Similarly, every month also, we have several months. Kartika month, which is governed by Damodar. Magha month, Vaishaka month. Magha month is Madhusudana. Vaishaka month, Chaitra month, who's governed by Vishnu, and so on. So every month is governed by some god, demigod, or demigoddess, and so on. There's a predominating deity also in each of these months. So Malamas Devi, who is the demigoddess governing or presiding over this month, got very upset. So she got very upset because there was no predominating deity for this month. There is no protection, there is no shelter for her. So Malamas Devi got very upset. Where should I go? Nobody wants to do any auspicious things in this month. So, in great anxiety, she went to Lord Narayan for help. So she said, of course, there is no predominating deity in this month. I have no shelter. I have no protection. What should I do? Can you help me here? I am an orphan. And at one point, she falls at the lotus feet of Lord Narayan and says that I'm willing to commit suicide. I don't want this life where everybody is calling me dirt and insulting me and nobody cares about this month and so on. So at that point, Lord Narayan said that because you have taken shelter of my lotus feet, don't worry. And he pacified her. And then he took her to Krishna, who is in Goloka Vrindavan. It is said that at the entrance of Goloka Vrindavan, the light was so effulgent that it almost blinded her. So Lord Narayan had to put her on the back and take her inside in order to meet Krishna. So, of course, whenever there's any problem, the ultimate solution for all problems is Krishna's shelter. So, as we know the famous verse, Akama Sarva Kamova, whether we have no desires or we are full of desires, we must go towards one solution or one shelter, and that is Krishna's shelter. And that is what happened here. Malamas Devi was taken to Krishna for shelter. And Krishna reciprocated in a wonderful way. Krishna said, now that you have come to Goloka Vrindavan, here everybody is blissful, and I will give you all protection, and I'll give you all mercy. So don't worry, all of your problems will be solved. So Krishna gave her three things. The first thing he said was, he said, I will give this month all of my qualities and all of my glories. Secondly, he said that I will give this month complete protection by accepting Malamas Devi as his wife. And the third thing he said, I'm not only giving you my qualities and glories, but I'm also giving you my name, which is Purushottam. And that is why this month is called Purushottam month, or the best among men month, which is the best among men is Krishna. So he says, from today, no one can say that you don't have any name nor any shelter, because I've given you a name, I'm giving you shelter by marrying you, and all of my qualities and glories reside in this one particular month called the Purushottam month. And that is the month that we are starting today. So as I was saying, in Shrimad Bhagavatam, there is this verse, Akama Sarva Kamova Moksha Kama Udaradi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusha Param. Whether we have no desires, akama, or we have a lot of desires, or we are desiring liberation, moksha kama, what we should all do is Tivrena Bhakti Yogena. We must wholeheartedly worship the Supreme Lord. And a similar verse occurs in Padma Puran, which starts exactly the same, Akama Sarva Kamova. So what this verse is saying is, this verse is glorifying Purushottam Mas, and it is saying that one who follows Purushottam Mas gets two benedictions. The first benediction is that all of his or her karma is completely destroyed. It says, Karmani Bhashmat Kritva. So all of one's karma is completely destroyed by following this month properly. And the second benediction that you get by following this month is that you go back home, back to Godhead immediately after this life. So, Mam Evaishyasi Asamshaya. That means you will come back to me without doubt. So I thought it was interesting to point these two verses because of the first line, Akama Sarva Kamova. So whether you have no desires or you have full of desires, please follow this month of Purushottam Mas sincerely. That is what Padma Puran promises us. So the glories of Purushottam Mas, I'll just talk a little bit about this and explain one more story that occurs between Krishna and the Pandavas. So it's Krishna's month. So Purushottam Mas is Krishna's month. Just like how Kartik is Radharani's month. Krishna is pleased with anyone who performs bhakti and devotional austerities in this month. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to progress spiritually in the next 30 days. Whoever follows this month will surely attain his abode. This is a promise that Krishna has made. And whoever does not follow this month are indirectly disrespecting Krishna. All the holy places in the world come to reside in the body of one who observes Purushottam Vrata. And it is said that one Purushottam Vrata is equal to 1,000 Vratas of Kartik. So we started off by talking about Purushottam Mass, and we mentioned two things. One is it's a mala, and the other is that it's adik, right? So the Vaishnava Acharyas comment on these two words and give a positive version to it. So this month can be used to remove the dirt or the anarthas that have accumulated in our hearts, and we can purify that by cleansing during this month. And adik, extra, we could increase our bhakti in this month. And that is how the Vaishnava Acharyas mention the positive aspects of these two words. Mala, we can remove the dirt, and adik, which means extra, we should use this month to perform extra devotion or increase our bhakti in this month. So let's take a story from Padma Puran, which depicts this pastime between Krishna and the Pandavas. So this is when the Pandavas were in exile, and Lord Shiva reached the Kamyavan forest to see the Pandavas. At that point, Lord Yudhishthir or Yudhishthir Maharaj asks Lord Krishna the cause of their misery. I mean, he explains to them, my dear Lord, we are your devotees. Why do we have to go through so many difficulties? The gambling match, Draupadi getting disrobed, now we are exiled for 14 years. Why is this happening to us? We are supposed to be your devotees. Why are we not getting your protection? So at that point, Krishna told the reason behind the misery of the Pandavas. And the main reason he mentions is that they had not been following Purushottam Mass sincerely in the past. At that point, Draupadi steps up and says, okay, that's fine, but what have I done? What have I done to get this misery, this getting disrobed and so on? So Krishna at that point explains the history of Draupadi, who Draupadi was in her previous life, and so on. And again, glorifying this month of Purushottam through this pastime. So this is a story of Medhavi Rishi and his daughter. So Medhavi Rishi was a very exalted sage who was very much involved in spiritual activities, so much so that he forgot to take care of his daughter's marriage. As time passed, as his daughter was growing in age, Medhavi Rishi passed away, and his daughter was left alone. There were no relatives, nobody to take care of her. Fortunately, Durvas Muni was a very, very close friend of Medhavi Rishi, and he appeared on the scene, and he heard from his friend's daughter, Medhavi Rishi's daughter, that she was extremely distressed. She said that everyone else, all my friends are getting married, they're having children, but what about me? I'm not getting married. Can you please help? At that point, Durvash Muni glorified the upcoming Purushottam Mass and told her even how to follow it. He gave her specific guidelines that if you do this, at the end of Purushottam Mass, you will get a good husband. But because Purushottam Mass was called Malamas, she did not believe Durvas Muni at all. She, in fact, responded in a very angry way. She called Durvas Muni a liar. She called Durvas Muni a cheat, saying that, come on, how can I do something in Malamas and get such a wonderful benediction? How is it even possible? And we all know how Durvas Muni would react when someone reacts this way. So he still said that because you're my friend's daughter, I can forgive you. But because you offended this wonderful Mass, I cannot forgive that part. And because of that, you will have to get a reaction. And the reaction is that you will lose all opulence and all beauty. Now, at this point, she was already distressed that she was not getting married. And now she was even more distressed because she became ugly and she had lost all her opulence. At that point, she started worshipping Lord Shiva. It is said that she performed extreme austerities for 9,000 years. And after performing austerities for 9,000 years, Lord Shiva appeared. At that point, she became so joyful. Now, Shiva is called Ashutosh. Ashu means rapid, and Tosh means someone who's satisfied. So, someone who's easily satisfied, who's rapidly satisfied, is Lord Shiva. So, he came and then asked her for a boon. And because she was so joyful, she immediately said, I want a husband, 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 5 times. Right? Now, because she said that 5 times, Lord Shiva said, Tatastu. And he said, okay, you will get 5 husbands. And then she said, no, 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 I don't want 5 husbands. I just said it 5 times because I was so joyful. I really wanted this. And this is the only thing I want. But Shiva said, unfortunately, I can't take it back. But one thing I can do is I can postpone it to your next life. And that is the history behind Draupadi. And the lesson that we learn here is that when we are too sorrowful, as we see here, when she was too sorrowful, she offended Purushottam Mas. And when she was too joyful, she asked for 5 husbands. So to perform anything when we are too joyful and too sorrowful, when we are not in control of our emotions, is not a good thing. That's the lesson that we learn here. So as the pastime unfolds, so after Lord Shiva explains this particular history of Draupadi to the Pandavas, he strongly encourages them to observe Purushottam Mas, which was upcoming in a few days. So Lord Shiva told the Pandavas that they have not previously followed the Purushottam Mas properly, and he told them to follow the upcoming Purushottam Mas. And they followed Krishna's instructions and worshipped Purushottam Mas in various ways during that particular month. And then, as we know, a lot of auspicious things started happening to them, both in this world and after enjoying a happy life in this world, they returned back to Godhead by the grace of Lord Shri Krishna. So there are several glories of Purushottam Mas that are mentioned in the Padma Puran and the Skanda Puran. I'll just quickly go over some of them. So Lord Krishna himself says, without performing Purushottam Vrata, one cannot perform pure devotional service. The value of Purushottam month is far more valuable than any other types of austerities and religious activities mentioned in the Vedas. Anyone who observes Purushottam Vrata will return to my abode, Goloka, at the end of his life. Durvas Muni also says, by bathing in a holy place, giving charity and chanting the holy name of Krishna during Purushottam month, all miseries are destroyed. One Purushottam Vrata is equal to 1,000 Kartik Vratas. All holy places live within the body of Purushottam, of the one who follows this month. Residence in the holy Dham in Purushottam month yields 1,000 times the benefit, and so on. There are several other glorifications of this particular month, but due to lack of time, I will skip that. So what should we do in this Purushottam month? So it is recommended that we follow some vows in this month. And as we say in the corporate world, we have to follow some SMART vows. So S is something that is seriously done. M is for something that's measurable. A is something that can be achieved. R is something that is relevant. And T is something that is time-based. So if possible, we should make some vows or vratas in this month. The most important vrata that we could take is to do our bhakti very intensely. So the prime process that we could follow is the Shravanam or hearing. And in fact, this particular month, we have this wonderful series going on the 9 processes of bhakti, which is perfect for this month of Purushottam. So of course, we can dive deep into Krishna Katha and study scriptures regularly. read Krishna books, Shrimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita daily. You can sing bhajans. In Vrindavan, they sing the Chaurashtakam and other bhajans during this month, Jai Radha Madhava, Jagannath Ashtakam, and so on. Offering a daily ghee lamp to Radha Krishna deity is also beneficial, it is said. And of course, rising early, 1.5 hours before sunrise during Brahma Muhurta. And also, it is recommended that reading chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita, which is actually called Purushottam Yoga, is auspicious during this month. And performing any austerities is also good. One of the don'ts that we should follow in this month is we must be very careful not to blaspheme any devotee, Shastra, Brahmin, cows, saints, or anyone observing Purushottam Mass. So since we won't know who is observing Purushottam Mass, it's better not to blaspheme anybody in this month. And then finally, I'll just end with two shlokas that are chanted during this month. And I like these because our dear Murlidhar's name is mentioned here. And the second verse goes like this. Vande Nava Ganashama Dvibhujam Murlidharam Pitam Bardharam Devam Sharadam Purushottamam. Vande means worship. Nava, fresh Ganasham, fresh, the color of fresh monsoon cloud. Dvibhujam, two-handed forms, who's holding the flute. Pita is yellow. I worship this form of the Lord who's wearing yellow garments. And this Sharadam is worship, this beautiful form in this yellow dress, Pitambar. So I'll stop here and we have a couple more minutes. If there are any questions or comments, please feel free to share. Prabhu, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Gaur Kumar, Prabhu. Thank you for covering the pastime also very concisely and giving wonderful lessons, especially about the three perspectives of the lesson. And especially I loved the point when you said we should be loving Krishna more than our own ego. So that was very helpful for me to hear. And also covering the Purushottam Adhikamas and inspiring everyone to practice. So at this point, I would like to invite if there are any questions or comments. So then I have a question I can ask at the end if others.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dale Mataji.
Yeah, thank you. It's so helpful, that overview of Purushottam Mass. But I have a question about the Bhagavatam portion. You know, Lord Shiva, he was not humiliated because it was Krishna's internal potency that defeated him, actually, not his external. But both external and internal have their source in Krishna. They're both his energies. So why is it more humiliating to be defeated by one than the other?
That's a good question. Anybody wants to answer? Adi Purush Prabhu is smiling. Adi Purush Prabhu, would you like to answer? Adi Purush Prabhu is perfect because it's Purushottam Mass. Adi Purush Prabhu, please.
Well, we invite everyone to benefit, to please Krishna, and to observe Purush this wonderful auspicious month by giving a donation to help to distribute Krishna's prasadam to the homeless people in the street. This is going on. And it says, you've quoted the verse several times, it doesn't matter whether you approach Krishna. Well, it doesn't matter what status you have, what degree of purity you have. If you approach Krishna, you will benefit. And we're hoping to serve Krishna and please Krishna. Does that answer your question?
I don't think so.
Okay. If you serve Krishna, you will understand. If you accept austerity, you give in charity, you respect the devotees, you worship the deity, you chant.
I think you maybe you didn't understand my question, Prabhu.
You're saying whether internal bewilderment or external energy bewilderment is better or worse, since they're both coming from Krishna.
Yeah.
Well, Krishna is inconceivable. Whether you're bewildered by this energy or that energy, you're bewildered. But at least there's a degree of a desire to please the Lord. And even Lord Shiva's activity of apparently falling down is serving Krishna because it helps Krishna explain to us to be very careful about lust. So Lord Shiva's falling down is an illustration for us. So Krishna likes things to be illustrated and explained.
I think the darshan is open. Granthra Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada.